Howdy, welcome back to Combo Compendium. Usually I try to have these videos out, well before a set release, but Dune releases next week officially, and I'm very behind the curve on these guides, so normally I like to do some cooking on my own, but since I'm so behind the curve already, I had to reach out a little bit for these Infernoble combos, but luckily there are a lot of dedicated Infernoble people out there. So I'm gonna give a quick little shout out to Team COG, Infernoble Knight Gianfranco, and Crimson Maycry. Also Pack did a little combo thing for Infernoble recently as well. A lot of what you'll see is probably going to come from some of these videos, and if you've watched those videos, again, you've probably seen a lot of these already. But, shout outs to them. Those guys have been cooking with the new Infernoble stuff for a while, and I'm really late to the party. But with that being said, the new Infernoble support, they got a lot of cool stuff. Most notably is the new Synchro, the field spell, the new Link 1, which we'll talk about when we get to it, and there's two new main deck monsters that are also very, very good. I want to start with this combo here, Ogier plus Fire Flint Lady, but this can be any extender like Red Layer, or even some of the old Infernobles like Oliver. Just basically any warrior extender. And I think this combo in particular shows off the strength of some of the new cards. Both of these are older cards, right? So normally the deck used to do Hulk of Fibrax Auroradon stuff, which, was cool back then, but looking back on it, it was like super lame, because the deck couldn't actually do anything in engine in terms of making an inboard. But now, thanks to these new combo pieces, the deck can completely play within its own engine, which I think is super sick. It's a nicely designed legacy support. So let's just go through this. Infernoble's kind of like a 2-card combo deck. So you need, usually a starter plus an extender. Ogier is pretty much the one you always want to see, because it's like Foolish Burial for the deck. So let's just normal summon out Ogier, and when it's summoned it can send a Fire Warrior from deck to grave, so we're going to send Turpin. Turpin is really good because it has the same effect that it can equip from the grave to a Noble Knight. But the most important part is that if you control a Noble Knight with an equip card, it can summon itself, and it's a level 4 non-tuner. And that's really good for a lot of reasons. Next we'll go ahead and summon out the Lady because we control a warrior and make the Isolde. Now from here you can Isolde to add any card that you're not going to use this turn. So we are going to use Gearfried this turn, we are going to use Renaud this turn. So basically you want to add anything that you can use as follow-up next turn. So, something like the main deck Roland to equip, or Astolfo to summon next turn. But you don't want to add anything that you can use this turn, because Isolde says the card you add cannot be special summoned or it cannot activate their effects. So now we use Isolde's second effect here. We're going to dump one equip spell, which is the Phoenix Blade, and summon out the Richardetto. If this card is special summoned, we can summon a level 4 or lower Fire Warrior from the grave, but we are locked into warriors. That is a pretty important restriction on this card. Thankfully, there's some pretty good generic warriors these days. So what we're going to do is we're going to summon out back the Ogier. So now we have a level 1 tuner and a level 4 non-tuner. And we can make the new Synchro, which is Angelica. So if this card is special summoned, you can add a Horn of Oliphant, or one card that mentions Infernoble Knight Emperor Charles from your deck to your hand. Now that Infernoble Knight Emperor Charles is the old Synchro. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the Museum. The Museum is really good. Neither of its effects are a hard once per turn, so if you have multiple copies, you can use multiple of these effects. Fire Warriors gain 500, which is a nice little boost. Once per turn, pay 1200 to add a Noble Arms card from your deck to your hand. And once per turn, if you used the previous effect, you can special summon a Noble Knight that is in your equip zone. So what we can do is we can go ahead and use Ogier's Graveyard effect to try to equip to the Angelica. And it does target, which means we can activate this effect when a card or effect is activated that targets this card. Send a Fire Warrior from your deck to the grave, banish this card until the end phase, then special summon a Roland monster from your deck or extra deck. So it's going to tag out. We're going to dump Phoenix Gearfried from deck to grave. Previously, the only way to get Gearfried in grave was to use Ogier, but now you have 2 Foolishes for Fire Warriors, which is really nice. And then we're going to summon out the Captain Roland from the extra deck. Importantly, this card is a level 5 tuner. Next, we're going to go ahead and use the Phoenix Blade, banishing these 2. The Ogier does not equip because this leaves the field, and that effect is once per turn, so it's a pretty good target to banish for Phoenix Blade because it's not going to be used again this turn. So we can go ahead and equip to the Roland, and because we now have a Noble Knight equipped with an equip spell, we can summon out the Turpin, which is a level 4 non-tuner, and this will make the Emperor Charles. Now Charles, we're going to use Captain Roland to equip. Now this Roland was not summoned legitimately, so you can't summon this, but that doesn't mean that you still can't use its effect to equip as a spell card, which is actually pretty funny. Next, we can go ahead and link 1, our level 9 monster, into Emperor Charles the Great. So in order to summon this, you have to have the level 9 Charles equipped with an equip card, and it basically just replaces it. If this card is link summoned, target the Emperor in your grave. This card becomes that target's original name, and it gains that target's original effects, and then you equip it to this card as a spell that gives it 500. Once per turn, when a spell, trap card, or effect is activated, send an equipped spell from your hand or face-up field to the grave, negate it, and destroy it. This spell trap negate is not a hard once per turn, and there are a lot of combos that summon multiple copies of this card in the same turn, so you get multiple spell trap interruptions. So what we can do here is go ahead and equip the Charles. So now this card's name becomes Emperor Charles, and it gains the effect. If an equipped card becomes equipped to a monster, even during the damage step, destroy a card on the field, and during the end phase, you can equip 1 equipped spell from your hand to this card, then equip a Fire Warrior from your deck as an equipped spell. So now this Link monster has both of these effects in addition to the spell trap negate. So it has an absolute insane amount of effects. Next, we're going to finally use the museum. We added this card to our hand a long time ago, which will grab us the Almace. This is a new equip spell. Basically, it tags out, if it's equipped to a monster, it tags out for another Noble Arms that is in your deck. So you can use it to grab Durandal or Joyeuse, and it also has a secondary effect that if this card is sent to the grave because the equipped monster was sent to the grave, target a Fire Warrior that is banished or in your grave and add it to your hand. You can only use 1 of these 2 effects per turn. So now we're going to go ahead and use the museum. Since we added this turn, we can summon back this Charles. We can finally use the Almace, and we can use its effect to swap out for the Durandal. Now Durandal, you might be familiar with this because it's an old one. Basically, we can destroy it and add a Fire Warrior to our hand, which is going to be the Renaud. Now this is why you don't want to add the Renaud off the Isolde for this combo, because we are using it this turn. We are going to grab back the Gearfried. This is how we get back the Gearfried that we dumped earlier. Now, since we summoned Renaud from the hand using its own effect, it becomes a level 1 tuner, which means we can use it and the Synchro Charles to make Barone, which is a warrior. So being locked into warriors, not a big deal, not a big deal. Next, we can go ahead and summon out this Gearfried. And then now we're just going to start equipping all of our monsters with everything. Now, the Link Charles, even if you get rid of this, it still keeps all of the effects, right? So it still has all of the Emperor Charles effects, even though it's not, like, equipped anymore. So that means during the end phase, we get to grab something like the All Mace and the Ogier, which gives it targeting protection while it's equipped. So this is going to be like, this is the typical end board for Infernoble now, if you go completely uninterrupted. So you have Barone, which is obviously an Omni Negate. You should know what this card does by now. Charles the Great is the spell trap negate, but also, since we have the Roland Engrave, during the main phase if this card is in your grave, you can target a warrior as a quick effect and equip it. Which means if you equip it to any of your monsters, this now becomes a quick effect pop, because it was equipped with an equip spell. And then finally you have the Gearfried, which is the monster negate. So you have Omni Negate, Spell Trap Negate, Monster Negate, and Quick Effect Pop. So 4 interruptions off of 2 cards. And you have tons of follow-up, because if this leaves the field, it triggers All Mace, which grabs back any Fire Warrior from your grave or banished. Angelica comes back during the end phase, you can use its effect again. You have Museum, which can grab Durandal on the following turn. And you have whatever follow-up you searched off of is sold. So the deck isn't really like an insane combo pile like it used to be. Back with like, you know, Halcyon stuff playing 10 million bricks in the deck. The deck can do a lot off of like very easy 2-card combos. And because it plays so much within its own engine, the deck actually has decent non-engine space now. So you can play a pretty compact build compared to like the 50 or 60 card Infernoble piles that we used to see. So this is like, you know, kind of a showcase of all the new stuff being made off of all the old stuff and how the new stuff makes this deck actually pretty playable. Now, I know I said that this is a 2-card combo deck, but the deck actually does have 1-card combos now, which it hasn't had since, you know, Halcyon stuff got banned. And which is really good because Neospace Connector is still a really insane starter. You can also play Sublimation Knight with Squeak Knight, but there isn't really a reason to do that anymore if you're playing like a more compact list. So let's go ahead and get into this here. So Connector is going to summon out the Aqua Dolphin. And Aqua Dolphin is really good because once per turn, discard a card, look at your opponent's hand and choose 1 monster. If you control a monster with attack greater than or equal to the attack of the chosen card, destroy the chosen card and burn your opponent for 500. Otherwise, you take 500. So this is really good because if your opponent knows what you're up to, they're probably going to Ash the Connector because they know that Aqua Dolphin is just going to rip the Ash out of their hand because Ash has 0 attack. So this card baits out Ash super well. It also protects you from Droll, which is Droll is killer for this deck. Droll will destroy you. But Connector does not need to search, right? It just summons straight from the deck, summons the Dolphin, and Droll has 0 attack, so you can just pitch this, hit the Droll right out of their hand before they even get a chance to use it. And another thing is that even if you don't hit anything out of their hand, you get full hand knowledge, right? Because you look at their entire hand. So now you know what your opponent is playing, and you can adjust your combo or adjust your end board accordingly. Like if they have a bunch of spells in their hand, you can make multiple Charles. Or if they have a bunch of monsters, you can make the Gearfried and the Barone and all that. So it's really nice. It's such a good interaction for you, not for your opponent. Your opponent's going to hate you if you do this. If you snipe the Droll with the Aqua Dolphin, your opponent's going to be pissed. So both of these are warriors, of course. So we can just go ahead and make the Isolde. Isolde add any follow-up for next turn. If you remember what the combos do, you can avoid adding the wrong card. Because you really don't want to add something that you want to use this turn. So next we're going to Isolde, and we're actually going to dump 4. Because we need more combo pieces, right? Because Isolde on its own is not doing much. So what we're going to do is we're going to dump the Durandal, the Joyeuse, the Phoenix Blade, and this last one can be whatever. It can be an All Mace, but I really like the metal silver armor, and we'll talk about that when we get to the end board. So we want to send 4 to summon out the Ogier, which is going to dump Terp into the grave. Next we can go ahead and Phoenix Blade, banish these 2 because these are worthless to us now. Go ahead and equip, and since this is equipped with an equip card, we can summon out the Turpin. And we can make the Artorigus. Now this is really cool. This isn't something that Infernoble could really do before pretty consistently, but now they can, and there's even better targets for it. So Artorigus, when it's XZ summoned, you can target up to 3 Noble Arms equips in your grave and equip those targets to this card. So we dumped the Durandal and the Joyeuse, so we're just going to go ahead and equip both of those. And Durandal, as you know, is the Searcher. So we're going to use the effect, we're going to grab the Richie, and this is going to destroy itself. Now Joyeuse, if the equipped monster is sent to the graveyard while it's equipped, you can special a Fire Warrior from the hand. So we have to get this Artorigus off the field, and we can do that by just linking off for another Isolde, or you can link into the Flame Swordsman, whichever one you want. The Flame Swordsman's probably better so that you can use Isolde again next turn, so that you still have another one in your extra. But by linking these off, it triggers the Joyeuse, which lets us summon the Richard from the hand. And now you can see we're kind of in the same spot that we were in the last combo, right? We have the Isolde, the Richard, and the Ogier. Only difference is that we have already used Durandal, so we're not going to be able to do the Renaud shenanigans to make Barone. But that's fine. I think the 1-card combo is still pretty nice. So we're going to make the Angelica, grab the Museum, go ahead and add back Phoenix Blade, targeting the Angelica, which can let us tag out, sending the Gearfried to the grave, summoning the Roland. Next we can activate Museum, grab the All Mace. This is going to let us add back the Gearfried once it's sent to the grave. So we're going to equip, and then we can use the Turpin to equip as well. And then the Museum to actually summon out the Turpin, because we already used the special summon effect. So we had to equip it and then use the Museum to special it. And this lets us go into our level 9. We can trigger the All Mace to add back the Gearfried. So we're going to equip this, make the Link 1, equip the Charles, summon the Gearfried. We can actually use the Ogier targeting the Charles, and then once we go to the end phase, we can use Charles to equip the Metal Silver from the grave and the Oliver from the deck. And of course we get the Angelica back as well. So the Metal Silver armor it has really weird rulings because it's a really old card. So as long as you control the monster equipped with this card, which is the Link 1, your opponent cannot use the effect of spell, trap, or monster effects that targets one monster except the equipped monster. Yeah, while this is equipped as an equipped spell, the equipped monster cannot be destroyed by card effects. And then this one says, your opponent cannot target the equipped monster with card effects. The Link 1 is currently untargetable by the effect of Oliver. However, we have an equip spell that says you can only target this card with targeting effects. Which means your opponent cannot activate any card that targets any monster on the field, in the graveyard, or banished, right? Because they can only target Charles, but they can't target Charles. So any targeting effects like Fenrir, anything that targets a card in the graveyard to revive, anything that like targets on the field like Visas and Riemhart, they have to target a Manadium on the field, pop them to special. They can't do that. Manadium is gonna really struggle against this card because they can't use Riemhart, they can't use Obsidian, they can't use Visas. So that's gonna be really funny. And it makes this board just insanely difficult to deal with. because this guy is 45, can't be targeted, can't be destroyed, and all of these monsters are also untargetable. So the only problem is that Dark Ruler exists, and if your opponent just Dark Rulers this board, yes, this still gets protected. Yes, everything is still untargetable, but they can combo off, and if they have outs to your back row, they can then out your main board, so that kind of sucks. Alright, now we can't talk about the combo deck without also talking about Nibiru. More importantly, how to play around Nibiru. And fortunately, Infernoble Knight has always had a pretty decent way to play around Nib. And now they even have even more ways, because you have multiple cards that get you access to the Gearfried pretty early. Unfortunately, one of those cards is Ogier, and you're going to notice Ogier a lot in a lot of combos going forward, because it's just like the best normal summon that isn't Connector, and some combos don't even use Connector because, well, spoiler alert, I'm going to be talking about adventure stuff in this video. But there are multiple ways to get to Ogier. There's like 10 ways to search this guy, so you're probably going to be fine. But yeah, let's talk about ways to play around Nibiru, and different ways that you can get out the Gearfried as early as possible if you don't hard draw it. So what we can do is we can go ahead and use Ogier to dump the Gearfried, and we're going to use Renaud to add back. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to Synchro 5 into Laud Salen. Now, Laud Salen on summon, you can equip a Noble Arms equip spell from your deck to your hand. So we're going to go ahead and grab the Durandal, because in order to summon Gearfried, you have to banish an equip spell from your field or graveyard to special summon it, and it only gets the negate if you have an equip spell on the field. So we have to find a way to get an equip spell pretty early on using these two, and Laud Salen's a pretty good one. So now we can use the Durandal. It'll pop itself, so now it's in the grave, which means we can use the Gearfried now to banish it and special. So right now we're on 4 summons, and we have to get an equip spell. But thankfully we have Ogier, which can turn itself into an equip spell from the graveyard. So now from here, we have the Gearfried with an equip spell on the 4th summon. So now we can play around Nib. And the reason we add the Turpin is because the Gearfried is equipped, so we can special summon it from the hand, which lets us go into the Isolde. And the reason you search this over any other extender is because we want to use Isolde to get the Richard. And since the Richard is the level 1 tuner, we need the level 4 non-tuner. So this is like the best level 4 non-tuner extender that we can search to go into the Angelica. And this is the part of the video where things get very repetitive. So I'm just gonna let these combos play out, because I don't want to talk about these effects over and over again. You can kind of pay attention to what's happening. I'll stop and talk about things that are important as we're going. So the All Mace here, we're going to equip to the Roland before we synchro it off, because off of the Angelica, we actually sent the Oliver. So we're going to link these off for the Charles. And what we can do is we can actually add back Renaud off the All Mace to give us more follow-up for the next turn. And we can make the Great Emperor Charles. So that's about all we can do from this combo in particular. But if you have, let's say you have like another Museum in hand, because the deck is going to play multiple copies of Museum and different ways to search it. So if you have another copy of Museum in your hand already, aside from the Angelica search, if you dump Oliver off of the Angelica effect, instead of adding back Renaud with the All Mace, you can add back the Oliver, and use the second field spell to summon this Charles that's equipped, and then use this Oliver, summon itself out, and it becomes a level 1 tuner to make Barone. Yeah, make Barone, because you get the level 1 tuner and the level 9. So if you have, like, any extra extenders on top of this board, you can also make the Barone, which is nice. While the combo I just showed off can do the same end board as... well, not necessarily the same end board. You definitely could make the full board with Charles, Gearfried, and Barone, but you would not be able to play around Nib. So, unfortunately, the deck does have to make sacrifices in order to play around the Nibiru, but this end board is still pretty good. Like, you get all these equips, everything's really sticky, really high attack, things like that. Alright, one more anti-Nibiru combo. We're going to start with the Ogier, and we're actually going to start with the Museum this time. This will be the first combo where we use multiple Museums in the same turn. So, we're going to start with the Ogier as usual, dumping the Gearfried. We're going to use the Museum to add Durandal, and Durandal effect to get the Renaud. Now we can Renaud, special, bring back the Gearfried, and instead of making Isolde here, we're just going to immediately make the Angelica to grab another Museum. And the reason for this is we want to bring back the Ogier as an equip spell, use the first Museum to special it, and then activate the second Museum. You have to get the ordering here correct, right? Special this, and then activate Museum, and then Museum effect, pay another 12 to grab Almace. Equip the Almace to any of these monsters, it doesn't matter which one. And then we can banish the Durandal from grave to summon the Gearfried, and this is the 5th summon. So we have the Gearfried on exactly the 5th summon, and we have an equip spell on field. So we are protected from Nibiru right here. And the important thing about Almace is that it doesn't destroy for cost. So even though it was equipped to these, either one of these two, you can use its effect to tag out into Joyous. And the cool thing about this is that it destroys itself and then re-equips on when the effect resolves. So there's at no point can your opponent Nibiru, like in between now and equipping this Joyous to the Gearfried. So now our Gearfried itself is equipped with an equip spell, which is very nice because now we can do whatever we want with these two while the Gearfried is on the board. So we can make Isolde, add whatever follow-up we want, and start comboing off with the good old Richard here. Bring back, make a second Angelica here, because we haven't used the second effect, we've only used the first effect. So we're going to Phoenix Blade target, and then we're going to use the effect to tag out by dumping Turpin, summoning Roland. Phoenix Blade add back once again, equip to the Gearfried, because we actually want to use the Joyous to add back the Turpin. And what this does is that Turpin will banish itself if it's special summoned from the grave by its own effect. But if you special summon it from the hand by its own effect, it goes back to the grave, so that you can use it again next turn. So the purpose of this is just to get better follow-up on the following turn by having this in the grave. Plus the Renaud as well, that we search off of Isolde. So now we can go ahead, climb up our Synchro line into Charles the Great, equip this guy, use the effect of Charles to summon out, use Turpin's second effect to equip to the Charles, and then we can actually make a second copy of the Link Charles here. And then during the end phase, everything comes back, we get all of our equips, and we have a pretty good follow-up next turn with Almace into Durandal, Renaud, Turpin, Field Spell. So even if this board gets broken, we do have like pretty good follow-up here. Alright, now that you get the gist of the pure Noble Knight stuff, what you can do with just the Noble Knights, let's talk about the adventure stuff for a little bit, because I think this is actually a pretty valid way to play the deck. Pretty much the only downside to playing the adventure stuff is less non-engine and not being able to play connector more consistently. Technically you can still play connector, but if you draw it plus adventure engine, then they conflict really hard. But I think there are some very valid reasons why you would want to play adventure with Infernoble. Let's just go through the combo here. I'll talk about some stuff as I go. So we're going to start with the adventure. If you're not familiar, what Rite of Air does is if you control no adventure token, special summon an adventure token, then activate a Fateful Adventure from your deck. You cannot activate the effects of monsters on the field, except special summoned monsters. So basically that means you can't activate the effects of normal summoned monsters, which might seem bad in the case of Ogier, but his effect triggers on normal or special. So if you find a way to special summon it later in the turn, which we will, you can use that effect, which is nice. So we're going to grab the Fateful Adventure here. We're going to normal the Ogier. We do not get the effect. But what we're going to do is we're going to grab the Draco back off of Fateful. And then we're going to use the second effect to go ahead and grab Magicor, Warrior of the Relics. Now, Magicor is a level 4 Fire Warrior, which is really cool because just having access to the Adventure Engine can give you 2 level 4s on board, one of them being a Fire Warrior, which almost every extender in the deck relies on having a Fire Warrior on the field. And if you control Adventure Token, you can just special summon this card from your hand, right? Get it? Right. So if you have the token, you can search the Magicor, discard either like a random card, or if you have a normal summon, you can get the Draco back. So it's a really nice way to just get a bunch of monsters on the board very quickly. Also, Draco back is an equip spell. So if you open something like Oliver, it's free pitch fodder for something like Oliver to special summon itself out to the field. Also for Gearfried, right? Like if you just pitch Draco back and then like don't add it back, you can banish it from the grave to summon Gearfried. So it also is a way to get extra equip spells into rotation for things like Gearfried and your extenders, which is sick. So now what we can go ahead and do here is make our Isolde with our 2 level 4s. This will add any whatever follow-up. You're probably not going to play Connector if you're playing Adventure. I'm just adding this for the sake of example. And we're going to go ahead and summon out the Richard, which will bring back the Ogier. And now, since this was special summoned, we can now use the effect to dump. So now we get to dump the Gearfried, which is nice. Next we go ahead and make Angelica. Search the museum. Museum, add Durandal. Activate Durandal. We're going to grab Renaud here. Phoenix Blade, banish these 2 to add back. Try to equip Chain Angelica. Dump Turpin, summon Roland, the classic interaction. And then we're going to go ahead and rank up into our Charles here. We can special summon out the Charles with Museum. Special Renaud, add back Gearfried, make Barone, and summon the Gearfried. And then this will get us... you don't have to summon the Turpin here. I just was like clicking buttons. I was just having a good time clicking buttons. But you can leave this in the grave for follow-up next turn. But yeah, basically you can see you get like the full board with Barone, Charles, Gearfried, all the equips. with the adventure engine, even if you don't get the normal summon effect, which is super sick. Here's another adventure example. This time we're going to use Oliver instead of Ogier, because this has something to do with the interaction I was talking about with the Dracoback being a really nice inclusion in the adventure engine. So you can, just with Fateful Adventure, you can search the Magicore and then just pitch any random card, right? And that's really nice for just flooding out the board, right? But it also adds you the equip spell to the hand. So if you have something like Oliver, you can use the effect, which will discard the Dracoback, special summon back the Oliver, and it becomes a level 1 tuner. And then Dracoback triggers to re-equip. So, which is really nice for things like Gearfried, as I've said. Now we can use the level 1 tuner and our level 4 to make Angelica. And then this just basically kickstarts our entire line, right? Go through all the motions. And the cool thing about this combo is that it lets us put up the entire end board without ever making Isolde, right? So look at this. We get the entire end board, and we never once used any of our Isoldes in order to do this. And that's just, you know, some of the power of the adventure engine, is that it gives you so many bodies on the board that it kind of replaces the Isolde, which is nice. So if your opponent pulls up with Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries and they rip all the Isoldes out of your extra, you're good as long as you have adventure. And then of course you have all the stuff that adventure is normally known for, which you can do if you already have full gas in your hand. You can just grab the Gryphon Rider, and that gives you protection for your entire combo. Right? Like this is the full board that I showed off at the beginning, and then now you just have the Gryphon, which protects you from everything pretty much. One last thing is Revolution Synchron. I'm not entirely sold on this. I tested it a good bit, but I couldn't really find any scenario where I wouldn't rather this be just any other warrior extender, like a Flint Lady or Red Layer, but I figured I would show this off anyway, just for the sake of example. Because with any level 4, it lets you make Power Tool, and Power Tool can reveal 3 Durandal from the deck and basically just add the Durandal, which can be nice. And you can use these two, link these off for the Flame Swordsman, which puts a Fire Warrior on board, so that after you use the Durandal and grab the Renaud, you can like start comboing off from here. But honestly, it's just not... I would rather this just be anything else, to be honest. It just takes up extra deck space for no reason, I think. But the concept is there. Might have to cook a little bit more with that. But I'll just let this play out to show you kind of what I was working with here. Because you can see it just ends on like the same thing as everything else. You're just playing like a whole bunch of cards that don't have much synergy at all, and it produces the same results. So I'm not sold on it, but it is there if you want to test with it a little bit.